We're going to start in chapter 19 today, and we're going to go all the way to verse 28. So let's go ahead and pray real quick. Father God, we just thank you for this opportunity to share your word, to be together. I know I'm just here alone in this room, but I know that my other fellow saints, my fellow believers are watching, whether it's live or later. But Father God, I just ask that you make today about you, make this reading edify you, that it's not just us reading through some words, but we're actually processing the message in our hearts. So it is a type of Bible study, but it's more of a Bible reading as well as a study. So Father, I just hope that it blesses the hearer, that it edifies somebody. Like I had a testimony last night of somebody, they said that they struggle reading, but they love listening to it, and that's the reason I do it. So Father, I just come to you right now and submit to your will. We give you all the praise and the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. So, if anybody's live, let me know. I can just to make sure there's that it's working. And so today, for the sake of editing, we've done our prayer. So we're going to go ahead and start out. This is day 3 of the Through the Bible Challenge in 180 days, probably less. This is day 3, and we're going to start in chapters 19, and we're going to shoot for 28. But if we get really, really brave, we can go from 19 to 35. And that gets us in line with the 90-day challenge. If we decide to change it to 90 days, we'll be on track. So here we are. We're reading the Bible again, the Word, and I think it's fun, even the places that people say are not fun. I love it. So with less talk and more read. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and get started. Here we go. We're in. This is where God rescues Lot, the relative of Abraham. Abram got his new name. Abram went from Abram to Abraham, and here's where their camps got really big, got too big for their britches. They spread out, and now this is where God rescues Lot after the fact. So we're starting Revelation 19, verse 1. That evening, the 2 angels came to the entrance of the city of Sodom. Lot was sitting there. And when he saw him, he stood up to meet him. Then he welcomed them and bowed with his face to the ground. Verse 2. My lords, he said, come to my home to wash your feet and be your guests for the night. Come to my home to wash your feet and be my guests for the night. You may then get up early in the morning and be on your way again. Oh no, they replied. We'll just spend the night out here in the city square. But Lot insisted, so at last they went home with him. Lot prepared a feast for them, complete with fresh bread, made without yeast. That's unleavened bread. That's referring to sin, actually, without sin. There's a lot of parallels there. And they ate. Verse 4. But before they retired for the night, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. Verse 5. They shouted to Lot, where are the men that came to spend the night with you? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them. So Lot stepped outside to talk to them. Shutting the door behind him, please, my brothers, he begged, don't do such a wicked thing. Look, I have 2 virgin daughters. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do with them as you wish. But please, leave these men alone, for they are my guests and are under my protection. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know that I would have handled that the same way and given my daughters. I don't know. This is why Anyway, it wasn't me, so... verse 9, stand back, they shouted. This fellow came to town as an outsider, and now he's acting like our judge. We'll treat you far worse than those other men. And they lunged toward Lot to break down the door. In verse 10, but the 2 angels reached out, pulled Lot into the house, and bolted the door. Then they blinded all the men, young and old, who were at the door of the house, so they gave up trying to get inside. Meanwhile, the angels questioned Lot. Do you have any other relatives here in the city? They asked. Get them out of this place. Your sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone else. Verse 13. For we are about to destroy this city completely. The outcry against this place is so great, it has reached the Lord, and he has sent us to destroy it. Verse 14. So Lot rushed out to tell his daughter's fiancé, quick, get out of the city. The Lord is about to destroy it. But the young men thought he was only joking. Verse 15. At dawn, the next morning, the angels became insistent. Hurry, they said to Lot. Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here. Get out right now, or you will be swept away in the destruction of the city. When Lot still hesitated, the angel seized his hand and the hands of his wife and 2 daughters and rushed them to safety outside the city, for the Lord was merciful. Verse 17. When they were safely out of the city, one of the angels ordered, "Run for your lives and don't look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the mountains or you will be swept away." "Oh no, my Lord," begged Lot. Verse 19. "You've been so gracious to me and saved my life, and you've shown such great kindness, but I cannot go to the mountains. Disaster would catch up to me there, and I would soon die." Verse 20. "See, there's a small village nearby. Please let me go there instead. Don't you see how small it is? Then my life will be saved." Verse 21. "All right," the angel said, "I will grant your request, and I will not destroy the little village. But hurry, escape to it, for I can do nothing until you arrive there." This explains why that village was known as Zoar, which means little place. So this is where God destroys Sodom. You guys having fun? This is good stuff. Lot reached the village just as the sun was rising over the horizon. Then the Lord rained down fire and burning sulfur from the sky on Sodom and Gomorrah. There's some areas in the world where they've actually seen signs of the sulfur. That's something you can look up. It's pretty interesting. Verse 25. "He utterly destroyed them along with other cities and villages of the plain, wiping out all the people and every bit of vegetation. But Lot's wife looked back as she was following behind him, and she was turned into a pillar of salt." Listen, when God gives you instruction, don't look back. That's a word to somebody. Verse 27. "Abraham got up early that morning and hurried out to the place where he had stood in the Lord's presence. He looked out across the plain towards Sodom and Gomorrah and watched as columns of smoke rose from the cities like smoke from a furnace." This is very, very much parallel to a Revelation, I think, around chapter 9 during some judgment that's happening. It's interesting. But God listened to Abraham's request and kept Lot safe, removing him from the disaster that engulfed the cities on the plain. So this is Lot and his daughters. Afterwards, Lot left Zoar because he was afraid of the people there, and he went to live in a cave in the mountains with his 2 daughters. One day, the older daughter said to her sister, "There are no men left anywhere in this entire area, so we can't get married like everyone else. And our father will soon be too old to have children." Not all the Bible's easy to read, okay? So just bear with me. "Come, let's drink with him with wine. Let's get him drunk with wine, and then we will have sex with him. That way we will preserve our family line through the father." That is the wrong way to do it, let me tell you. So that night they got drunk with wine, and the older daughter went in and had intercourse with her father. He was unaware of her lying down and getting up again. So the Bible literally talks about everything you can imagine, and yes, the bad stuff, and that's a good example. Verse 33. But it's in there, so sorry, guys. Verse 34. "The next morning, the older daughter said to her younger sister, 'I had sex with our father last night. Let's get him drunk with wine again tonight, and you go in and have sex with him. That way we will preserve our family line through our father.' So that night they got him drunk with wine again, and the younger daughter went in and had intercourse with him." This is rough. "As before, he was unaware of her lying down and getting up again. As a result, both of Lot's daughters became pregnant with their own father." So now we're talking about incest here. "When the older daughter gave birth to the son, she named him Moab," which I believe means washpot. That's not good. "He became the ancestor of the nation known as the Moabites." Verse 38. "When the younger daughter gave birth to a son, she named him Benami. He became the ancestor of the nation known as the Ammonites." So that's verse 19. We're moving on to verse 20. This is good. It's not necessarily good, but it's fun. It's fun to read the Bible. Chapter 20, verse 1. "Abraham moved south to the Negeb, and he lived for a while between Kadesh and Shur, and then he moved to Gerar. While living there as a foreigner, Abraham introduced his wife Sarah by saying, 'She's my sister.' Technically, she is partial sister. I think it's a half-sister. So King Abimelech and Gerar sent for Sarah and had her brought to him at his palace. But that night God came to Abimelech in a dream and told him, 'You're a dead man, for that woman you have taken is already married.' But Abimelech had not slept with her yet, so he said, 'Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Didn't Abraham tell me she's my sister?' And she herself said, 'Yes, he is my brother. I acted in complete innocence. My hands are clean.'" Verse 6. In the dream, God responded, "Yes, I know you are innocent. That's why I kept you from sinning against me, and why I did not let you touch her. Now return to the woman and her husband." and he will pray for you, for he is a prophet. Then you will live. But if you don't return to him, you can be sure that you and all your people will die." Abimelech got up early the next morning and quickly called all of his servants together. When he told them what had happened, his men were terrified. Then Abimelech called for Abraham. "What have you done to us?" he demanded. "What crime have I committed that deserves treatment like this, making me and my kingdom guilty of this great sin? No one should ever do that. Do what you have done." That reminds me of in Egypt, when Pharaoh was like, "Why did you bring your daughter here and curse us?" So that's interesting. Chapter 20, verse 10 of Genesis. "Whatever possessed you to do such a thing?" Abraham replied, "I thought, this is a godless place. They will want my wife and will kill me to get her. And she really is my sister, for we both have the same father but different mothers." Oh boy. "And I married her." So there it is. Verse 13, "When God called me to leave my father's house and to travel from place to place, I told her, 'Do me a favor, wherever we go, tell the people that I am your brother.'" A lot of dishonesty going on here, but in a way it's not, but in a way it is. His purpose is to deceive. So, then Abimelech took some of the sheep and goats, cattle, and male and female servants, and he presented them to Abraham. He also returned his wife Sarah to him. Verse 15. Then Abimelech said, "Look over my land and choose any place where you would like to live." And he said to Sarah, "Look, I am giving your brother 1,000 pieces of silver in the presence of all these witnesses. This is to compensate you for any wrong I may have done to you. This will settle any claim against me, and your reputation is cleared." Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servants, so they could have children. Verse 18, "For the Lord had caused all the women to be infertile because of what happened with Abraham's wife, Sarah." So, wow, that's a difficult chapter, man. We don't have time to go into it, but man, there's some crazy stuff that happens in the Bible. Let's be honest. So, chapter 21. "The Lord kept his word and did for Sarah exactly what he had promised. She became pregnant and she gave birth to a son for Abraham in his old age. This happened at just the time God had said it would, as always. And Abraham named their son Isaac. 8 days after Isaac was born, Abraham circumcised him as God had commanded." That's Jewish law. Verse 5, "Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born." So he was 99, and then when he was born, he was 100. That's pretty cool. "And Sarah," verse 6, "declared, 'God has brought me laughter. All who hear about this will laugh with me.'" So remember when she heard she was pregnant or could be pregnant, she's like, she made fun of it, and God asked Abraham, why is she laughing? So verse 7, "Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse a baby? Yet I have given Abraham a son in his old age." When Isaac grew up and was about to be weaned, Abraham prepared a huge feast to celebrate the occasion. But Sarah saw Ishmael, that was the illegitimate son, the son of Abraham, and her Egyptian servant Hagar, or Egyptian handmaid, making fun of her son Isaac. So I'm going to tell you, this says in the Bible, he represents Jesus in another story we're going to talk about in the next chapter. But it's funny how when you serve God, Jesus says, "It's not you that hate, it's me." They're going to make fun of you in your own town. So here we go. Isaac, the good guy in the story, you could say, he's made fun of. So verse 10 says, "Get rid of the slave woman and her son. He's not going to share the inheritance with my son Isaac. I won't have it." So she turned to Abraham and demanded that. Get rid of the slave woman and her son. He is not going to share the inheritance with my son Isaac. I won't have it. So verse 11, "This upset Abraham very much because Ishmael was his son. But God told Abraham, 'Do not upset over the boy and your servant. Do whatever Sarah tells you, for Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted.'" See, there it is. There's a lineage beginning. Verse 13, "But I will also make a nation of the descendants of Hagar's son, because he is your son too." That's the other side we talked about. What I believe is the Palestinians and my brain's not working, but there's where I believe there's lineage difference where the people groups go different ways, but that's just me. So Abraham got up early the next morning, prepared food and a container of water, and strapped them on Hagar's shoulders. Then he sent her away with their son, and she wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was gone, she put the boy in the shade of a bush. Verse 16. Then she went and sat down by herself about 100 yards away. I don't want to watch the boy die, she said as she burst into tears. But God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven. Hagar, what's wrong? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Verse 18. Go to him and comfort him, for I will make a great nation from his descendants, just like Isaac. Then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well full of water. She quickly filled her water container and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy as he grew up in the wilderness. He became a skillful archer. Verse 21. And he settled in the wilderness of Paran. His mother arranged for him to marry a woman from the land of Egypt. Now, when you hear things from Egypt, it never seems to be good in the Bible. So this is a treaty made with Abimelech. Verse 22. About this time, Abimelech came with Phicol, his army commander, to visit Abraham. God is obviously with you, helping you in everything you do, Abimelech said. Swear to me in God's name that you will never deceive me, my children, or any of my descendants. I have been loyal to you. So now swear that you will be loyal to me and to this country where you are living as a foreigner. That's that word sojourner I mentioned in the King James. Abraham replied, yes, I swear to it. Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well that Abimelech's servants had taken by force from Abraham's servants. This is the first I've heard of it, Abimelech answered. I have no idea who is responsible. You never complained about this before. Abraham then gave some of his sheep, goat, and cattle to Abimelech, and they made a treaty. But Abraham also took 7 additional female lambs and set them off by themselves. Abimelech asked, why have you set these 7 apart from the others? Abraham replied, please accept these 7 lambs to show your agreement that I dug this well. And this is where we're going to get into, I believe it's Jacob's well down the road. This is where it all started. Then he named the place Beersheba, which means well of the oath, because that was where they had sworn the oath. After making their covenant at Beersheba, Abimelech left the Phicol, the commander of his army, and they returned home to the land of the Philistines. Then Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he worshipped the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham lived as a foreigner, a sojourner, and in Philistine country for a long time. That's chapter 21. Okay, this is the sacrifice of Isaac. This story, when you see this story, you're going to see a sacrifice made and a son. He's going to be laid on an offering, and you're going to see a picture of God, the Son, Jesus. You're going to see some parallels, and we're going to mention them. In this chapter, I'm going to give a little more details than some, but this is a wonderful, amazing, one of the most amazing parallels in all the Bible, I think, of the whole Bible. So let's do this. So Isaac's going to be taken up as an offering, and Abraham's going to be obedient. He's going to listen. So here we go, chapter 22, verse 1. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied. Here I am, or in the King James, here am I. Verse 2, take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom thou love so much. And in the King James, it says, whomest thou love. Now, I want you guys to notice there's a law called the law of first mention, right? Love in John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Well, this is the first time you hear the word love period in the Bible mentioned, is right here in Genesis 22:2. But this is a reference pointing to the true love at the cross of Jesus. So here we go. This is good. Take your son, your only son. That sounds like Jesus. Yes, Isaac. There's the picture of Jesus. Abraham would be the father. Whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah, Mount Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you. Jesus was on a wooden burnt offering, just saying. Verse 3. The next morning, Abraham got up early. He was obedient. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son, Isaac. Then he chopped wood for a fire for a burnt offering and set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Stay here with the donkey, Abraham told the servants. The boy and I will travel a little further. We will worship there. And then we will come right back. Man, what an amazing story. Wow. Verse 6. So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders while he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them walked on together, Isaac turned to Abraham and said, Father. Yes, my son. Abraham replied, We have the fire and the wood, the boy said, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering? Now here's my question. How would Abraham have heard about the sheep? How does he know about that? This stuff is in Scripture. Abraham represents the father. Isaac represents the son. You're going to hear about a sheep, the lamb. You're going to hear about a ram in the thicket, but that's the lamb who actually died for us at the cross. This is pointing directly at the cross, same place. I think it's 2,000 years later. Amazing story. So there's a burnt offering. That's a picture of Jesus on the cross, you guys. Verse 8, God will provide him a sheep for the burnt offering. My son Abraham answered, and they both walked together. The King James says, God will provide himself a lamb. And I love that because I see that as God saying he himself will come as the son and he himself will die. He'll provide himself for a lamb or as a lamb. That's amazing. Verse 9, when they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on the top of the wood. There's the cross analogy. There it is. Verse 10, and Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called him from heaven. Abraham, Abraham. Yes, Abraham replied, Here I am, or here am I in the King James. Don't lay a hand on the boy, the angel said. Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me, even your son, your only son. So look at this. This is God's way of saying, listen, you're my friend. I call you my friend. I'm going to bring you and show you what I have to go through. But you know what? You're not going to have to give your son, but I'm going to have to give my son. I want you to understand, Abraham, I call you my friend because I want you to see what I have to go through. People don't understand me. But I'm going to have a lamb on the burnt offering, not this ram in the thicket. And that ram, the thickets, that represents the thorns that were on Jesus' head. That's incredible. I want you guys to notice when Abraham leaves the two men behind, he goes up with Isaac, just with Isaac. The story shows him going up. But I want you to pay attention to the details here. He didn't withhold his son, but watch. Isaac went up alone with Abraham. But watch this. Verse 13. Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its thorns in a thicket. There it is. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham named the place Yahweh Jireh, which means the Lord will provide, or Jehovah Jireh. To this day, people still use that name as a proverb. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. Verse 15. Then the angel of the Lord called again to Abraham from heaven. Hey, love, nice to see you. I love you. This is what the Lord says, because you've obeyed me and have not withheld even your son, your only son, I swear by my own name that I will certainly bless you. I will multiply your descendants beyond number, like the stars in the sky and the sand and the seashore, which I mentioned earlier, and I didn't realize it was right here. That was my mistake. But this is where he says your children are going to outnumber, your generations will outnumber the stars and the sands. Your descendants will conquer the cities of their enemies. Love that. And through your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. And there's another where God talks about the people, the descendants of Israel, of Abraham being blessed. But then you can go to Numbers 24, verses 1 through 9. It actually mentions the place of Israel being blessed, and whoever curses Israel will be cursed. And you can look that up on your own. Or go to my TikTok. I just did a video about it. Then they returned to the servants and traveled back to Beersheba, where Abraham continued to live. Soon after this, Abraham heard that Milcah, his brother Nahor's wife, had borne Nahor 8 sons. Whew. The oldest was named Uz. The next oldest was Buz or Buzz. Uz and Buzz, wow. Followed by Camil, the ancestor of the Armenians, the Arameans, Kasad, Hazo, Fildash, Jopla, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. In addition to these 8 sons of Milcah, Nahor had 4 other children from his concubine Rumah. Their names were Taba, Gehem, Tahash, and Makkah. Wow, I could have come up with better names. Those are rough. So that's Genesis 22. We're going to move on to Genesis 22. This is where Sarah, unfortunately, this is her death and her burial. When Sarah was 127 years old, she died at Kiriath Arba, now called Hebron, or the Hebron Valley, in the land of Canaan. There Abraham mourned and wept for her. Do you guys know back in those times they had professional mourners? The word lament or lamentations means lamenting, mourning. Okay, chapter 23, verse 3. Then leaving her body, he said to the Hittite elders, "Here I am, a stranger of a foreigner among you, and a foreigner among you. Please sell me a piece of land so I can give my wife a proper burial." The Hittites replied to Abraham, "Listen, my lord, you are an honored prince among us. Choose the finest of our tombs and bury her there. No one here will refuse to help you in this way." Then Abraham bowed low before the Hittites and said, "Since you are willing to help me in this way, be so kind as to ask Ephron, son of Zohar, to let me buy his cave at Machpelah. Down at the end of his field, I will pay the full price in the presence of witnesses. So I will have a permanent burial place for my family." Wow. Ephron was sitting there among the others, and he answered Abraham as the others listened, speaking publicly before all the Hittite elders of the town. "No, my lord," he said to Abraham, "please listen to me. I will give you the field and the cave. Here's the presence of my people. Here in the presence of my people. I give it to you. Go and bury your dead." Abraham again bowed low before the citizens of the land, and he replied to Ephron, as everyone listened, "No, listen to me. I will buy it from you. Let me pay the full price so the field so I can bury my dead there." Ephron answered Abraham, "My lord, please listen to me. The land is worth 400 pieces of silver, but what is that between friends? Go ahead and bury your dead." So Abraham agreed to Ephron's price and paid the amount he had suggested, 400 pieces of silver, weighed according to the market standard. The Hittite elders witnessed the transaction. So Abraham bought the plot of land belonging to Ephron at Machpelah, near Mamre. This included the field itself, the cave that was in it, and all the surrounding trees. You guys good out there? We good? Facebook Live. We got my wife, and that's all I need. Okay. Verse 18, it was transferred to Abraham as his permanent possession in the presence of the Hittite elders at the city gate. Okay. Then Abraham buried his wife Sarah there in Canaan in the cave of Machpelah, near Mamre, also called Hebron. So the field and the cave were transferred from the Hittites to Abraham for use as a permanent burial place. Chapter 24. Abraham was now a very old man, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. One day Abraham said to his oldest servant, the man in charge of the household, "Take an oath by putting your hand under my thigh. Swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not allow my son to marry one of these local Canaanite women." Verse 4, "Go ahead to my homeland, to my relatives, and find a wife there for my son Isaac." The servant asked, "But what if I can't find a young woman who's willing to travel so far from home? Should I then take Isaac there to live among your relatives in the land you came from?" "No," Abraham responded. "Be careful, never take my son there." Well, he wasn't playing around. "For the Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and my native land, solemnly promised to give this land to my descendants. He will send his angel ahead of you, and he will see to it that you find a wife there for my son." So just do what God says. "If she's unwilling to come back with you, then you are free from this oath of mine. But under no circumstances are you to take my son there." So the servant took an oath by putting his hand under the thigh of his master. He swore to follow Abraham's instructions. Then he loaded 10 of Abraham's camels with all kinds of expensive gifts from his master, and he traveled to distant Aram Naharaim, to distant Aram Naharaim. There he went to the town where Abraham's brother Nahor had settled. He made the camels kneel beside a well just outside the town. It was evening, and the women were coming out to draw water. "O Lord, God of my master Abraham," he prayed, "please give me success today and show unfailing love to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here I am standing here beside this spring, and the young women of the town are coming out to draw water. This is my request. I will ask one of them, please give me a drink from your jug. If she says yes, have a drink, and I will water your camels too. Let her be the one you have selected as Isaac's wife. This is how I will know that you have shown unfailing love to my master. Before he had finished praying, he saw a young woman named Rebecca coming out with her water jug on her shoulder. Here comes Rebecca. I met my wife just like that too. It's how it just kind of happened, you know. She was the daughter of Bethuel, who was the son of Abraham's brother Nahor and his wife Milcah. Rebecca was very beautiful, just like my wife, and old enough to be married, but she was still a virgin. She went down to the spring, filled her jug, and came up again. Running over her, the servant said, please give me a little drink of water from your jug. Yes, my lord, she answered, have a drink. And she quickly lowered her jug from the shoulder and gave him a drink. When she had given him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels too until they have had enough to drink. So she quickly emptied her jug into the watering trough and ran back to the well to draw water for all his camels. The servant watched her in silence, wondering whether or not the Lord had given him success in his mission. Then at last, when the camels had finished drinking, he took out a gold ring for her nose and the 2 large gold bracelets for her wrist. I want you guys to know, we always have these Middle Eastern pictures that you see artwork of, like, Jesus on a cross. Really, those are ancient Greek statues. Just like we think of the women in all these different scenes that we draw, but they had big rings. They actually looked a lot different than we see in the books. So yeah, the large bracelets for her wrists. Verse 23, whose daughter are you? He asked, and please tell me, would your father have any room to put us up for the night? I am the daughter of Bethuel, she replied. Bethel. She replied, my grandparents are Nahor and Milcah. Yes, we have plenty of straw and feed for the camels, and we have room for guests. The man bowed low and worshipped the Lord. Verse 27, praise the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, he said. The Lord has shown unfailing love and faithfulness to my master, for he has led me straight to my master's relatives. The young woman ran home to tell her family everything that had happened. Now Rebekah had a brother named Laban, who ran out to meet the man at the spring. He had seen the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrist and had heard Rebekah tell what the man had said. So he rushed out to the spring where the man was still standing beside his camels. Laban said to him, come and stay with us. You who are blessed by the Lord, why are you standing here outside the town when I have a room already for you and a place prepared for the camels? We good? So the man went home with Laban, and Laban unloaded the camels, gave him straw for their bedding, fed them, and provided water for the man and the camel drivers to wash their feet. Then food was served, but Abraham's servant said, I don't want to eat until I've told you why I've come. All right, Laban said, tell us. I am Abraham's servant, he explained, and the Lord has greatly blessed my master. He has become a wealthy man. The Lord has given him flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, a fortune in silver and gold, and many male and female servants and camels and donkeys. When Sarah, my master's wife, was very old, she gave birth to my master's son, and my master has given him everything he owns. And my master made me take an oath. He said, do not allow my son to marry one of these local Canaanite women. Go instead to my father's house, to my relatives, and find a wife there for my son. But I said to my master, what if I can't find a young woman who is willing to go back with me? He responded, the Lord in whose presence I have lived will send his angel with you and will make your mission successful. Yes, you must find a wife for my son and from among my relatives, from my father's family. I want you guys to notice when God repeats that, he basically is repeating what he said when his servant here is repeating what he said. God's doing that for a reason. He wants us to hear it, and he mentions it twice. Wow. Verse 41, then you will have fulfilled your obligation, but if you go to my relatives and they refuse to let her go with you, you will be free from my oath, just like he'd told him. So today when I come to the spring, I prayed this prayer. O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please give me success on this mission. See, I am standing here beside the spring. This is my request. When a young woman comes to draw water, I will say to her, please give me a little drink of water from your jug. Wow. Verse 44. If she says, yes, have a drink, and I will draw water for your camels too, let her be the one you have selected to be the wife of my master's son. Welcome, Julie. Julie, my wife. Verse 45. Before I had finished praying in my heart, I saw Rebekah coming out with her water jug on her shoulder. She went down to the spring and drew water. So I said to her, please give me a drink. This reminds me of John chapter 4 with the woman at the well, kind of. Verse 46. She quickly lowered her jug from her shoulder and said, she said, yes, have a drink and I will water your camels too. So I drank, and then she watered the camels. Then I asked, whose daughter are you? She replied, I am the daughter of Bethuel, and my grandparents are Nahor and Milcah. So I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her wrists. Then I bowed low and worshipped the Lord. I praised the Lord, the God of my master, Abraham, because he had led me straight to my master's niece to be his son's wife. Verse 49. So tell me, will you or won't you show unfailing love and faithfulness to my master? Please tell me yes or no, and then I'll know what to do next. Then Laban and Bethuel replied, the Lord has obviously brought you here, so there is nothing we can say. Here is Rebekah. Take her and go. Yes, let her be the wife of your master's son as the Lord has directed. When Abraham's servant heard the answer, he bowed down to the ground and worshipped the Lord. Then he brought out silver and gold and jewelry and clothing and presented them to Rebekah. He also gave expensive presents to her brother and mother. Then they ate their meal, and the servant and the men with him stayed there overnight. But early the next morning, Abraham's servant said, send me back to my master. Verse 55. But we want Rebekah to stay with us at least 10 days. Her brother and mother said, then she can go. But he said, don't delay me. The Lord has made my mission successful. Now send me back so I can return to my master. Well, they said, we'll call Rebekah and ask her what she thinks. So they call Rebekah. Are you willing to go with this man? They asked her. And she replied, yes, I will go. So they said goodbye to Rebekah and sent her away with Abraham's servant and his men. The woman who had been with Rebekah's childhood nurse went along with her. They gave her this blessing as she parted. Our sister, may you become the mother of many millions. May your descendants be strong and conquer the cities of their enemies. Verse 61. Then Rebekah and her servant girls mounted the camels and followed the man. So Abraham's servant took Rebekah and went on his way. Meanwhile, Isaac, whose home was in the Negev, had returned from Bir Lahai Roi. One evening, as he was walking and meditating in the fields, he looked up and saw the camels coming. When Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac, she quickly dismounted from her camel. Who's that man walking through the fields to meet us? She asked the servant. And he replied, it's my master. So Rebekah covered her face with her veil. Wow. This reminds me of in the garden how they covered themselves trying to use religion. It represents Israel, how we cover our face. I don't know. It just reminds me of that. So verse 66, then the servant told Isaac everything he had done. And Isaac brought Rebekah into his mother Sarah's tent, and she became his wife. He loved her deeply, and she was a special comfort to him after the death of his mother. So we're going on to chapter 25. All right, we're getting there. We're going to try to go to 28 at least. So verse 25, this is when Abraham dies, and this is more about the descendants of Abraham. Abraham married another wife whose name was Keturah. So he remarried. She gave birth to Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Median, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. Dedan's descendants were the Asarites, the Tushites, and Luamites. Midian's sons were Ephah, Epher, Henok, Abida, and Eldah. These were all descendants of Abraham through Keturah. Abraham gave everything he owned to his son Isaac. But before he died, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them off to a land in the east, away from Isaac. That sounds a lot like Middle East, Palestine, Israel, the whole fighting thing in the Middle East. It's strange. Abraham lived for 175 years, verse 7. Verse 8, and he died at a ripe old age, having lived a long and satisfying life. He breathed his last and joined his ancestors to death. I want you guys also to notice in Scripture, you always see the deaths. You hear about the deaths, but you never hear much about the birth. There's a lot of accountability in the years of the times that people died, because it has meaning. That's a curious thing too to look into. Verse 9, his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in a cave in Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron and the son of Zohar the Hittite. This was the field Abraham had purchased from the Hittites and where he had buried his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who settled near Beer-Lahai Roy in the Negev. This is the account of the family of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, through Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian servant or handmaid. Here's a list by their names and clans of Ishmael's descendants. The oldest was Nebaioth. You guys pray for me here. Nebaioth, followed by Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Masa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Nephish, and Kedemah. These 12 sons of Ishmael became the founders of 12 tribes named after them, listing according to the places they settled and camped. Ishmael lived for 137 years. Then he breathed his last and joined his ancestors in death. Okay, verse 18. Ishmael's descendants occupied the region from Havilah to Shur, which is east of Egypt, in the direction of Ashur. There they lived in open hostility toward all their relatives. So So here's where we get Esau and Jacob, the brothers. And this story is a very, very well-known story that you hear a lot about in church. Verse 19, this is the account of the family of Isaac, the son of Abraham, Bethuel, the Aramean from Padan, Aram, and the sister of Laban and Aramean. Wow, what are these names or something else? Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was unable to have children. The Lord answered Isaac's prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant with twins. I love how it just takes you all the way through these genealogies throughout time. And it does the same thing with the letters to the 7 churches for the church age. It's so cool. I love the Bible. But the 2 children struggled with each other in her womb, so they were fighting before they were born. That happens now with my kids sometimes. So she went, not so much my kids, but with kids. So she went to ask the Lord about it. Why is this happening to me? She asked. And the Lord told her, the sons of in your womb will become 2 nations. Wow, nations are fighting before they even birthed. See what I mean? This is the birth of 2 nations. See that? Wow. It says, the sons in your womb will become 2 nations from the very beginning. This is the beginning. The 2 nations will be rivals. One nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve your younger son. And when the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she did indeed have twins. The first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. So they named him Esau. So he was a hairy redhead. That's what that sounds like. Verse 26. Then the other twin was born with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born. As the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter. He was an outdoorsman, but Jacob had a quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home. Sounds kind of like me. Verse 28, Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating the wild game Esau brought home, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And there's a teaching in there we can't do here. So this is where Esau sells his birthright. It's a fascinating story. One day when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau arrived home from the wilderness exhausted and hungry. Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew. This is how Esau got his other name, Edom, which means red. All right, Jacob replied, but trade me your rights as the firstborn son. Look, I'm dying of starvation, said Esau. What good is my birthright to me now? But Jacob said, first, you must swear that your birthright is mine. So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling all his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. Verse 34, then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. He showed contempt for his rights as a firstborn. And that's chapter 25. Chapter 26. Okay. So a severe famine now struck the land and had happened before in Abraham's time. So Isaac moved to Gerar, where Abimelech, king of the Philistines, lived. So we're good? Okay. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Live here as a foreigner in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I hereby confirm that I will give all these lands to you and your descendants, just as I solemnly promised to Abraham, your father. I will cause your descendants to become as numerous as the stars in the sky." Does that ring a bell? "And I will give them all these lands, and through your descendants all the nations of the earth will be blessed." So you're going to see this. Abraham was told that, Isaac, and Jacob. See that? It's a repeat. God's very clear on his message. The people will be blessed. There it is again. "I will do this because Abraham listened to me and obeyed all my requirements, commands, decrees, and instructions." So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men who lived there asked Isaac about his wife, Rebekah, he said, "She's my sister." He was afraid to say, "She's my wife." He thought they would kill her. They would kill me to get her because she is so beautiful. But sometime later, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out his window and saw Isaac caressing Rebekah. Immediately, Abimelech called for Isaac and exclaimed, "She's obviously your wife. Why did you say she's my sister?" "Because I was afraid someone would kill me and get her from me," Isaac replied. "How could you do this to us?" Abimelech explained. "One of my people might easily have taken your wife and slept with her, and you would have made us guilty of sin. Remember that happened in Egypt. Same thing with Pharaoh. I mean, this is a repeat." Then Abimelech issued a public proclamation. "Anyone who touches this man or his wife will be put to death." When Isaac planted his crops that year, he harvested 100 times more than he had planted, for the Lord blessed him. He became a very rich man, and wealth continued to grow. He acquired so many flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and servants that Philistines became jealous of him. So the Philistines filled up all Isaac's wells with dirt. Oh boy. These were the wells that had been dug by servants of his father Abraham. Finally, Abimelech ordered Isaac to leave the country. "Go somewhere else," he said, "for you have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away to the Gerar Valley, where he set up their tents and settled down. He reopened the wells his father had dug, which the Philistines had filled after Abraham's death. Isaac also restored the names of the names Abraham had given them. Isaac's servants also dug the Gerar Valley and discovered a well of fresh water. Verse 20. But then the shepherds from Gerar came and claimed the spring. "This is our water," they said, and they argued over it as Isaac's herdsmen. So Isaac named the well Esek, which means argument. Right now, the land of Israel is being argued over. See what I mean? This started way back in the Old Testament, from the beginning. Verse 21, Isaac's men then dug another well again, but again there was a dispute over it. So son Isaac named it Sitnah, which means hostility. Sorry about that. Abandoning that one, Isaac moved on and dug another well. This time there was no dispute over it. So Isaac named the place Rehoboth, which means open space. For he said, At last the Lord has created enough space for us to prosper in this land. Take a break here. Recording, we're still good? You guys hear me? Okay. Here we go. From there, Isaac moved to Beersheba, verse 24, where the Lord appeared to him on the night of his arrival. "I am the God of your father Abraham," he said. "Do not be afraid, for I am with you and will bless you. I will multiply your descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will do this because of my promise to Abraham, my servant." See, it just keeps repeating the promise carried through. Verse 25, then Isaac built an altar there and worshipped the Lord. He set up his camp at that place, and his servants dug another well. One day, King Abimelech came to the Gerar with his advisor, Ahuzath, and also Phicol, his army commander. "Why have you come here?" Isaac asked. "You obviously hate me, since you kicked me off your land." They replied, We can plainly see that the Lord is with you, so we want to enter into a sworn treaty with you. Let's make a covenant. Swear that you will not harm us, just as we have never troubled you. We have always treated you well, and we sent you away from us in peace. And now look how the Lord has blessed you." Verse 30. So Isaac prepared a covenant feast to celebrate the treaty, and they ate and drank together. Early the next morning, they each took a solemn oath not to interfere with each other. Then Isaac sent them home again, and they left him in peace. That very day, Isaac's servants came and told him about a new well they had dug. "We found water," they exclaimed. So Isaac named the well Sheba, which means oath. And to this day, the town that grew up there is called Beersheba, which means well of the oath. At the age of 40, Esau married 2 Hittite wives, Judith, the daughter of Beri, and Basmath, the daughter of Elon. It's not Elon Musk, it's a long time later. But Esau's wife made life miserable for Isaac and Rebekah. Chapter 27. We're moving along. We got this. We might go ahead to chapter 35. You guys having a good time or what? This is good stuff. This is good stuff. So, chapter 27, Genesis 27, verse 1. One day when Isaac was old and turning blind, he called for Esau's older son, and said, "My son." "Yes, father," Esau replied. "I'm an old man now," Isaac said, "and I don't know when I may die. Take your bow and a quiver full of arrows, and go out into the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare my favorite dish and bring it here for me to eat. Then I will pronounce the blessing that belongs to you, my firstborn son, before I die." But Rebekah overheard what Isaac had said to his son Esau. So when Esau left to hunt for the wild game, she said to her son Jacob, "Listen, I overheard your father say to Esau, 'Bring me some wild game and prepare me a delicious meal. Then I bless you in the Lord's presence before I die. Then I will bless you in the Lord's presence before I die.'" Verse 8. "Now my son, listen to me. Do exactly as I tell you. Go out to the flocks and bring me 2 fine young goats. I'll use them to prepare your father's favorite dish. Then take the food to your father so he can eat it and bless you before he dies." "But look," Jacob replied to Rebekah, "my brother Esau is a hairy man and my skin is smooth." Wow, okay, so I'm more like Jacob. Got no hair. I like to think it's because I'm Indian. I don't know. Verse 12, "What if my father touches me? He'll see that I'm trying to trick him, and then he'll curse me instead of blessing me." But his mother replied, "Then let the curse fall on me, my son. Just do what I tell you. Go out and get the goats for me." So Jacob went out and got the young goats for his mother. Rebekah took them and prepared a delicious meal, just the way Isaac liked it. Then she took Esau's favorite clothes, which were in the house, and gave them to her younger son Jacob. She covered his arms and the smooth part of his neck with the skin of the young goats. So she's trying to make him seem like Esau. That's interesting. Wow. Verse 17. Then she gave Jacob the delicious meal, including freshly baked bread. So Jacob took the food to his father. "My father," he said. "Yes, my son," Isaac answered. "Who are you, Esau or Jacob?" Jacob replied, "It's Esau, your firstborn son. I've done as you told me. Here's the wild game. Now sit up and eat it so you can give me your blessing." Isaac asked, "How did you find it so quickly, my son? The Lord your God put it in my path," Jacob replied. Think about how people are trying to take over the land of Israel, but it's not their promised land. This just so much reminds me of all that's been going on for years and years. So again, Jacob asked, "How did you find me so quickly, my son? The Lord your God put it in my path," Jacob replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come closer so I can touch you and make sure that you really are Esau." So Jacob went closer to his father, and Isaac touched him. The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's, Isaac said. But he did not recognize Jacob because Jacob's hands felt hairy just like Esau's. So Isaac prepared to bless Jacob. "But are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "Yes, I am," Jacob replied. Then Isaac said, "Now, my son, bring me the wild game. Let me eat it, and then I will have Then I will give you my blessing. So Jacob took the food to his father, and Isaac ate it. He also drank the wine that Jacob served him. Then Isaac said to Jacob, please come a little closer and kiss me, my son. That's customary. They would kiss their cheek. It's just something they used to do. They still do today, actually. So Jacob went over and kissed him, and when Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he was finally convinced and blessed his son. He said, ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the outdoors, which the Lord has blessed. Remember how God talks about the incense as a sweet smell in his nose? Think about that. Verse 28, from the dew of heaven and the richness of the earth, may God always give you the abundant harvest of grain and bountiful new wine. Many nations become your servants, and may they bow down to you. May you be the master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. All who curse you will be cursed, and all who bless you will be blessed. There's another analogy to the blessings of the people. So we see several things related to to bless Israel, and you'll be blessed. The people of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and you'll be blessed. And again, Numbers 24 talks about the land of Israel. So both are in there, in case you're wondering. So verse 30, as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and almost before Jacob had left his father, Esau returned from his hunt. Esau prepared a delicious meal and brought it to his father. Then he said, sit up, my father, and eat my wild game so you can give me your blessing. But Isaac asked him, who are you? Esau replied, it's your son, your firstborn son, Esau. Isaac began to tremble uncontrollably and said, then who just served me wild game? I've already eaten it, and I blessed him just before you came. And yes, that blessing must stand. Then Esau heard his mother's words. He let out a loud, bitter cry. Oh, my father, what about me? Bless me too, he begged. But Isaac said, your brother was here, and he tricked me. He has taken away your blessing. Esau exclaimed, no wonder his name is Jacob, for now he has cheated me twice. First he took my rights as a firstborn, and now he's stolen my blessing. Oh, haven't you saved even one blessing for me? Isaac said to Esau, I have made Jacob your master and have declared that all his brothers will be his servants. I have guaranteed him an abundance of grain and wine. What is left for me to give you, my son? Esau pleaded, But do you have only one blessing? Oh, my father, bless me too. Then Esau broke down and wept. Wow. Verse 39. Finally, his father Isaac said to him, will you live away from the richness of the earth and away from the dew of the heaven above? You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. From that time on, Esau hated Jacob because their father had given Jacob's blessing. And Esau began to scheme, I will soon be mourning my father's death when I will kill my brother Jacob. But Rebekah heard about Esau's plans, so she went for Jacob and told him, listen, Esau is consoling himself by plotting to kill you. So listen carefully, my son. Get ready and flee to my brother, Laban, in Haran. Stay there with him until your brother cools off. That reminds me of the story of the Holy Spirit of Joseph, the father of Jesus, being sent to Egypt instead of going back to Nazareth. And then eventually 2 years later, or 2 or 3 years later, King Herod died. It reminds me of that story quite a bit. So he calms down and forgets what you have done to him. I will send for you to come back. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm sick and tired of these local Hittite women. I would rather die than see Jacob marry one of them. The plot thickens. Now we were going to stop here in chapter 28, but we might go to 35. My coffee's a little cold, but it's okay. So Isaac, here we go, chapter 21, Genesis chapter 28, verse 1. We're moving on. So Isaac called for Jacob, blessed him, and said, you must not marry any of these Canaanite women. Instead, go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of your grandfather Bethuel, and marry one of your uncle Laban's daughters. May God Almighty bless you and give you many children, and may your descendants multiply and become many nations. May God pass on to you and your descendants the blessings he promised to Abraham. May you own this land and where you are now living as a foreigner. For God gave this land to Abraham. So Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Paddan Aram to stay with his uncle Laban, his mother's brother, the son of Bethuel and Aramean. Esau knew that his father Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to Paddan Aram to find his wife, and that he had warned Jacob, "You must not marry a Canaanite woman." He also knew that Jacob had obeyed his parents and gone to Paddan. It was now very clear to Esau that his father did not like the local Canaanite women, so Esau visited his uncle Ishmael's family and married one of the Ishmael's daughters, in addition to the wives he had already had. His new wife's name was Mahalath. She was the sister of Naboth and the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son. So this is a dream. This is a very big story in the Bible. This is really good. This is Jacob's dream. This really, I believe, is the door to Israel. This is really where what we know today as Israel. This is like the birth of that, in my opinion. Meanwhile, Jacob left Beersheba and traveled toward Haran. At sundown, he arrived at a good place to set up camp and stop there for the night. Jacob found a stone to rest his head against and lay down to sleep. As he slept, he dreamed of a stairway that reached from earth up to heaven, and he saw the angels of God going up and down that stairway. This is a very interesting story. At the top of the stairway stood the Lord, and he said, "I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather Abraham, and the God of your father Isaac. The ground you are lying on belongs to you." There it is again. This is the lineage of Abraham, this land, which will be Israel. This is it. It says it again, over and over again. "I am giving it to you and your descendants." See, it's not just him, it's everybody until then, meaning right now. Verse 14, "Your descendants will be as numerous as the dust on the earth. They will spread out in all directions, to the west and east, to the north and to the south, and to the north and the south. And all the families on the earth will be blessed through you and your descendants. What's more, I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. One day I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have finished giving you everything I have promised you." Then Jacob awoke from the sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place. I wasn't even aware of it." But he was also afraid and said, "What an awesome place this is. It is none other than the house of God, the very gateway to heaven." Wow. Wow. This is amazing. The next morning, Jacob got up very early. He took the stone he had rested his head against, and he set it upright as a memorial pillar. Then he poured olive oil over it. He named that place Bethel, which means the house of God, although it was previously called Luz. Now, as you study the garden, the trees in the garden, you hear about the city of Luz. And there's some background to that. Then Jacob made this vow: "If God will indeed be with me and protect me on this journey, and if he will provide me," sorry about that, one second. Okay, let's see. "If he will provide me with food and clothing, and if I return safely to my father's home, then the Lord will certainly be my God. And this memorial pillar I have set up will become a place of worshiping God, and I will present to God a tenth of everything he gives me." Now, there is a pattern known as the tithe. Malachi 3 talks about it. We talked about Melchizedek, mentioned the tenth. This word tithe comes from this. Again, he says, "I've set up a place of worshiping God, and I will present to God a tenth of everything he gives me." The Bible doesn't say you have to give a tenth, but it does show patterns of leaders throughout church history giving a tenth or a tithe. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So that's chapter 28. Moving on, chapter 29. We're going to try to make this thing to chapter 35 if we can. That'd be amazing. So Jacob gets married to Leah and Rachel. Then Jacob hurried on, finally arriving in the land of the east. He saw a well in the distance. 3 flocks of sheep and goats lay in an open field beside it, waiting to be watered, but a heavy stone covered the mouth of the well. It was the custom there to wait for all the flocks to arrive before removing the stone and watering the animals. Let's see. Afterward, the stone would be placed back over the mouth of the well. Verse 4. Jacob went over to the shepherds and asked, "Where are you from, my friends? Where are you from? Haran, they answered. Do you know a man there named Laban, his grandson of Nahor? He asked. Yes, we do, they replied. Is he doing well? Jacob asked. Yes, he's well, they answered. Look, here comes his daughter Rachel with the flock now. Jacob said, look, it's still broad daylight, too early to round up the animals. Why don't you water the sheep and goats so they can go back out to pasture? We can't water the animals until all the flocks have arrived, they replied. Then the shepherds moved the stone from the mouth of the well, and he watered all the sheep and goats. Jacob was still talking with them when Rachel arrived with her father's flock, for she was a shepherd. So there's a woman as a shepherd, right? And because Rachel was his cousin, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and because the sheep and goats belonged to his uncle Laban, Jacob went over to the well and moved the stone from its mouth and watered his uncle's flock. Verse 11, Genesis 29:11. Then Jacob kissed Rachel, and he wept aloud. He explained to Rachel that he was her cousin on her father's side, the son of her aunt Rebekah. So Rachel quickly ran and told her father Laban. As soon as Laban heard that his nephew Jacob had arrived, he ran out to meet him. He embraced and kissed him and brought him home. When Jacob had told him his story, Laban exclaimed, "You really are my own flesh and blood," after Jacob had stayed with Laban for about a month. Laban said to him, "You shouldn't work for me without pay just because we're relatives. Tell me how much your wages should be." Okay, here we go. One more drink. Okay, now Laban had two daughters. The older daughter was named Leah, and the other one was Rachel. There was no sparkle in Leah's eyes, but Rachel had a beautiful figure and a lovely face. That sounds like my wife. Since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he told her father, "I will work for you for 7 years if you'll give me Rachel, your younger daughter, as my wife." "Agreed," Laban replied. "I'd rather give her to you than to anyone else. Stay and work with me." So Jacob worked 7 years to pay for Rachel. But his love for her was so strong that it seemed to him but a few days. That's true love, man. Years feel like days. That's what I'm talking about. Finally, the time came for him to marry her. "I fulfilled my agreement," Jacob said to Laban. "Now give me my wife so I can sleep with her." Straight to the point. So Laban invited everyone to the neighborhood and prepared a wedding feast. But that night when it was dark, Laban took Leah to Jacob and he slept with her. Wow. Okay, that's messed up. Verse 24, Laban had given Leah a servant, Zilpah, to be her maid. But when Jacob woke up in the morning, it was Leah. "What have you done to me?" Jacob raged at Laban. "I've worked 7 years for Rachel. Why have you tricked me? It's not our custom here to marry off a younger daughter ahead of the firstborn," Laban replied. "But wait until the bridal week's over, then we'll give you Rachel too." Wow. "Provided you promise to work another 7 years for me." So 14 years? That's messed up. So Jacob agreed to work 7 more years. A week after Jacob had married Leah, Laban gave him Rachel too. Laban gave Rachel a servant, Bilhah, to be her maid. So Jacob slept with Rachel too, and he loved her much more than Leah. He then stayed and worked for Laban the additional 7 years. And here we get the lineage of Jacob's children. Verse 31, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he enabled her to have children, but Rachel could not conceive. Wow. So Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "The Lord has noticed my misery, and now my husband will love me." She soon became pregnant again and gave birth to another son. She named him Simeon, for she said, "The Lord heard that I was unloved and has given me another son." How sweet is that? It ain't about looks. It's about obedience. Come on. Then she became pregnant a third time and gave birth to another son. He was named Levi, for she said, "Surely this time my husband will feel affected for me, since I have given him 3 sons." Now the Levites, later on, we're going to read more about this. They'll be the ones who would carry the Ark of the Covenant. They'd represent the priesthood. So they didn't inherit specifically land. They just had regions. And I believe you'll hear more about those regions when we hear about the 24 elders in the book of Revelation. But that's another day. So this says she became pregnant with a third time and gave birth to another son. He was named Levi. She said, surely this time my husband will feel affection for me since I have given him 3 sons. Once again, Leah became pregnant and gave birth to another son. She named him Judah. There's the tribe of Judah. That's the big one. For she said, now I will praise the Lord. And then she stopped having children. That's verse 29. Moving on to 30. Here we go. You guys having fun? Let's keep going. When Rachel saw that she wasn't having any children for Jacob, she became jealous of her sister, then pleaded with Jacob, give me children or I'll die. Then Jacob became furious with Rachel. Am I God? He asked. Here's the one who has kept you from having children. Then Rachel told him, take my maid Bilhah and sleep with her. She will bear children for me. I feel like that happened to Abraham when he got in trouble with Sarai. Same thing. History repeats itself. So Rachel gave her, Bilhah, she'll sleep with her. She will bear, verse 3, she will bear children for me, and through her I can have a family too. So Rachel gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob as a wife, and he slept with her. Verse 5, Bilhah became pregnant and presented him with a son. So this man, these illegitimate sons, this stuff just continues to happen throughout generations, and it's still happening today. This is where it all started. Wow. Rachel named him Dan. He'll have some troubles. For she said, God has vindicated me. He has heard my request and has given me a son. And Bilhah became pregnant again and gave Jacob a second son. Rachel named him Naphtali. For she said, I've struggled hard with my sister and I'm winning. These are the 12 tribes of Israel that it's mentioning. Verse 9, meanwhile, Leah realized that she wasn't getting pregnant anymore, so she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. It's good stuff. It's a lot of reading, though. Soon Zilpah, verse 10, presented him with a son. Leah named him Gad, for she said, how fortunate I am. Then Zilpah gave Jacob a second son, and Leah named him Asher. It's the name of my grandson. For she said, what joy is mine. Now the other women will celebrate with me. One day during the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandrakes growing in a field and brought them to his mother, Leah. Rachel begged Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But Leah angrily replied, wasn't it enough that you stole my husband? Now will you steal my son's mandrakes too? Rachel answered, I will let Jacob sleep with you tonight if you give me some of your mandrakes. So that evening, as Jacob was coming home from the fields, Leah went out to meet him. You must come and sleep with me tonight, she said. I have paid for you with some mandrakes that my son found. So that night he slept with Leah. And God answered Leah's prayer. She became pregnant again and gave birth to a fifth son for Jacob. She named him Issachar, and she said, God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband as a wife. So all these names all had meanings, you guys. All these names had meanings. And there's so many, within the Hebrew, the Aramaic, the Greek, even in the Latin, there's so many things that are hidden for our finding in Scripture. It's amazing. And all these names mean something. Verse 19, then Leah became pregnant again and gave birth to a sixth son for Jacob. She named him Zebulun, for she said, God has given me a good reward. Now my husband will treat me with respect, for I have given him 6 sons. Later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel's plight and answered her prayers by enabling her to have children. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. God has removed my disgrace, she said. And she named him Joseph. And she said, may the Lord add yet another son to my family. Joseph, there's a big name. This is Jacob's prosperity. Verse 25, soon after Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, please release me so I can go home to my own country. Let me take my wives and children, for I have earned them by serving you. And let me be on my way. You certainly know how hard I have worked for you. Please listen to me, Laban replied. I have become wealthy, for the Lord has blessed me because of you. Tell me how much I love you. Whatever it is, I'll pay it. Jacob replied, "You know how hard I've worked for you and how your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You had little indeed before I came, but your wealth has increased enormously. The Lord has blessed you through everything I've done. But now, what about me? When can I start providing for my own family?" "What wages do you want?" Laban asked again. Jacob replied, "Don't give me anything. Just do this one thing, and I'll continue to tend and watch over your flocks. Let me inspect your flocks today and remove all the sheep and goats that are speckled or spotted, along with all the black sheep." Black sheep sounds like my childhood. "Give these to me as my wages. In the future, when you check on the animals you have given me as my wages, you will see that I have been honest. If you find in my flock any goats without speckles or spots, or any sheep that are not black, you will know that I have stolen them from you." "All right," Laban replied, "I will be as you say." But that very day, Laban went out and removed the male goats that were streaked and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted or had white patches, and all the black sheep. He placed them in the care of his own hands. Verse 36, "Who took them a 3 days' journey from where Jacob was?" Let me go back again. He placed them in the care of his own sons, who took them a 3 days' journey from where Jacob was. Meanwhile, Jacob stayed and cared for the rest of Laban's flock. Verse 37. Then Jacob took some fresh branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and peeled off strips of bark, making white streaks of them. Then he placed these peeled branches in watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, for that was where they mated. Verse 39. Genesis 30:39. And when they mated in front of the white streaked branches, they gave birth to the young that were streaked, speckled, and spotted. Jacob separated those lambs from Laban's flock, and at mating time he turned the flock to Laban's animals that were streaked or black. This is how he built his own flock instead of increasing Laban's. And you can't do it the wrong way. You got to do it the right way. You can't cheat. You can't take somebody's inheritance. Doesn't work that way. Whenever the stronger females were ready to mate, Jacob would place the peeled branches in the watering troughs in front of them. Then they would mate in front of the branches. But he didn't do this with the weaker ones, so the weaker lambs belonged to Laban, and the stronger ones belonged to Jacob's. As a result, Jacob became very wealthy with large flocks of sheep and goats, female and male servants, and many camels and donkeys. Chapter 31, moving on. But Jacob soon learned that Laban's sons were grumbling about him. "Jacob has robbed our father of everything," they said. "He has gained all the wealth at our father's expense." And Jacob began to notice the change in Laban's attitude towards him. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your father and grandfather, and to your relatives there, and I will be with you." So Jacob called Rachel and Leah out of the field where he was watching his flock. He said to them, in verse 5, "I have noticed that your father's attitude toward me has changed, but the God of my father has been with me. You know how hard I've worked for your father, but he has cheated me, changing my wages 10 times, but God has not allowed him to do me any harm. For if he said, 'The speckled animals will be your wages,' the whole flock began to produce speckled young. And when he changed his mind and said, 'The striped animals will be your wages,' then the whole flock produced striped young. In this way, God has taken your father's animals and given them to me. One time during the mating season, I had a dream and saw that male goats mating with the females were streaked." I know I have this drink in my coffee. Females streaked, speckled, and spotted. Verse 11. Then in my dream, the angel of God said to me, "Jacob." And I replied, "Yes, here I am." The angel said, "Look up, and you will see that only the streaked, speckled, and spotted males are mating with the females of your flock, for I have seen how Laban has treated you. I am the God who appears to you at Bethel, the place where you anointed the pillar of stone and made your vow to me. Now get ready and leave this country and return to the land of your birth." Rachel and Leah responded, "That's fine with us. We won't inherit any of our father's wealth anyway. He has reduced our rights to those of foreign women. And after he sold us, he wasted the money and paid him for us. And you paid him for us. All the wealth God has given you from our family." Okay, let me start over. "All the wealth God has given you from our father legally belongs to us and our children. So go ahead and do whatever God has told you. So Jacob put his wives and children on camels, and he drove all his livestock in front of him. He packed all the belongings he had acquired in Padan Aram and set out for the land of Canaan, where his father Isaac lived. Verse 19. At the time they left, Laban was some distance away shearing the sheep. Rachel stole her father's household idols and took them with her. Jacob outwitted Laban and Aramean, for they set out secretly and never told Laban they were leaving. So Jacob took all his possessions with him and crossed the Euphrates River, heading for the hill country of Gilead. 3 days later, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he gathered a group of his relatives and set out in hot pursuit. He caught up with Jacob 7 days later in the hill country of Gilead. My wife loves the hill country, but it's in Texas here. But the previous night, God had appeared to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream and told him, I'm warning you, leave Jacob alone. Laban caught up with Jacob as he was camped in the hill country of Gilead, and he set up his camp not far from Jacob's. What do you mean by deceiving me like this? Laban demanded. How dare you drag my daughters away like prisoners of war? Why did you slip away secretly? Why did you deceive me? And why didn't you say you wanted to leave? I would have given you a farewell feast with singing and music accompanied by tambourines and harps. Why didn't you let me kiss my daughters and grandchildren and tell them goodbye? You've acted very foolishly. I could destroy you, but the God of your father appeared to me last night and warned me, leave Jacob alone. I understand your feeling that you must go, and your intense longing for your father's home. But why have you stolen my gods? Lowercase gods? Why have you stolen my gods? I rushed away because I was afraid, Jacob answered. I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. But as for your gods, see if you can find them and let the person who has taken them die. And if you find anything else that belongs to you, identify it before all these relatives of ours, and I will give it back. But Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the household idols. Laban went first into Jacob's tent to search there, then into Leah's, and then the tents of the two servants' wives, but he found nothing. Finally, he went into Rachel's tent, but Rachel had taken the household idols and hidden them in her camel saddle, and now she was sitting on them. When Laban had thoroughly searched her tent without finding them, she said to her father, Please, sir, forgive me if I don't get up for you. I'm having my monthly period. So Laban continued his search, but he could not find the household idols. I do like that the New Living Translation translates things literally. That's nice. Then Jacob became very angry, verse 36, and he challenged Laban. What's my crime? He demanded. What have I done wrong to make you chase after me as though I were a criminal? Verse 37, You have rummaged through everything I own. Now show me what you found that belongs to you. Set it out here in front of us before our relatives, for all to see. Let them judge between us. For 20 years I have been with you, caring for your flocks, and all that time your sheep and goats never miscarried. And all those years I never used a single ram of yours for food. Verse 39, If any were attacked and killed by wild animals, I never showed you the carcass and asked you to reduce the count of your flock. No, I took the loss myself. You made me pay for every stolen animal, whether it is taken in broad daylight or in the dark of night. I worked for you through the scorching heat of the day and through the cold and sleepless nights. Yes, for 20 years I slaved in your house. I worked for 14 years, earning your 2 daughters. Remember that, 7 years and then 7 years. And then 6 more years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. In fact, in the God of my father, if the God of my father had not been on my side, the God of Abraham and the fearsome God of Isaac, you would have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen your abuse and my hard work. That is why he appeared to you last night and rebuked you. Then Laban replied to Jacob, These women are my daughters, these children are my grandchildren, and these flocks are my flocks, in fact. Everything you see is mine. But what can I do now about my daughters and their children? So come, let's make a covenant, you and I, and it will be a witness to our commitment. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a monument. Then he told his family's members, gather some stones. So they gathered stones and piled them in a heap. Then Jacob and Laban sat down beside the pile of stones to eat a covenant meal. See, in these days, covenant, it was a covenant this way. then we turn into a handshake. Now it's like, prenuptial agreements. Isn't that terrible? It's like saying, I want to do this in case you let me go. That's not identifying love. Prenuptial agreements, if that's how you feel, don't marry somebody. Okay, verse 47. To commemorate, okay, we'll go back. Then Jacob and Laban sat down beside the pile of stones to eat a covenant meal to commemorate the event. Laban called the place Jagar Sehudatha, which means witness pile in Arabic. And Jacob called it Gilead, which means witness pile in Hebrew. Then Laban declared, this pile of stones will stand as a witness to remind us of the covenant we have made today. This explains why it was called Gilead, witness pile. But it was also called Mitzvah, which means watchtower. For Laban said, may the Lord keep watch between us to make sure that we keep this covenant when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters, or if you marry other wives, God will see it even if no one else does. He is a witness to this covenant between us. So covenants are not just a promise; they're by God. They're like a marriage covenant. See this pile of stones, Laban continued, and see this monument I have set between us. They stand between us as witnesses of our vows. I will never pass this pile of stones to harm you, and you must never pass these stones of this monument to harm me. I call on the God of our ancestors, the God of your grandfather Abraham, and the God of my grandfather Nahor, to serve as a judge between us. So Jacob took an oath before the fearsome God of his father Isaac to respect the boundary line. Verse 54. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice to God there on the mountain and invited everyone to a covenant feast. After they had eaten, they spent the night on the mountain. Laban got up early the next morning, and he kissed his grandchildren and his granddaughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. Chapter 32, verse 1. As Jacob started on his way again, angels of God came to meet him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, this is God's camp. So he named the place Mahanaim. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir in the land of Edom. He told them, give this message to my master Esau. Humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now I have been living with Uncle Laban. And now I will own cattle, donkeys, flocks of sheep and goats, and many servants, both men and women. I have sent these messengers to inform my lord of my coming, hoping that you will be friendly to me. After delivering the message, the messengers returned to Jacob and reported, we met your brother Esau, and he is already on his way to meet you with an army of 400 men. Jacob was terrified at the news. He divided his household along with flocks and herds and camels into two groups. He thought, if Esau meets one group and attacks it, perhaps the other group can escape. Then Jacob prayed, O God of my grandfather Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and to your relatives, and you promised me I will treat you kindly. I am not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown to me, your servant. When I left home and crossed the Jordan River, I owned nothing except a walking stick. Now my household fills two large camps. O Lord, please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I'm afraid that he is coming to attack me, along with my wives and children. Verse 12, but you promised me I will surely treat you kindly, and I will multiply your descendants until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore, too many to count. Jacob stayed where he was for the night. Then he selected these gifts from possessions to present to his brother Esau. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. All of those numbers have significance, you guys. That's something you can look up on your own. Verse 16, he divided these animals into herds and assigned each to different servants. Then he told the servants, go ahead of me with the animals, but keep some distance between the herds. He gave these instructions to the men leading the first group. When my brother Esau meets you, he will ask. He will ask, whose servants are you? Where are you going? Who owns these animals? You must reply, they belong to your servant Jacob, but they are a gift for his master Esau. Look, he is coming right behind us. Jacob gave the same instructions to the second and third herdsmen and to all who followed behind the herds. You must say the same thing to Esau when you meet him, and be sure to say, look, your servant Jacob is right behind us. Jacob thought, I will try to appease him by sending gifts ahead of me. When I see him in person, perhaps he will be friendly to me. So the gifts were sent on ahead while Jacob himself spent that night in the camp. Now, this is a very famous story where Jacob wrestles with God. And you're going to see this name Israel pop up. This is a good story. Genesis 32, verse 22. During the night, Jacob got up, or Yachab, actually the J is silent now. Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servant wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until dawn began to break. When the man saw he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of his socket. Then the man said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. What is your name? The man asked. He replied, Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, the man told him. From now on, you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won. So there, Jacob gets a new name, as we know it as Israel. So Jacob is also Israel. Welcome, Johnny. So verse 29, we're going to go to chapter 35 and we'll be done. Please tell me your name, Jacob said. Why do you want to know my name? The man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. The sun was rising as Jacob left Peniel, and Peniel. He was limping because of the injury to his hip. Verse 32. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon of Jacob's hip. Wow. So we're going to go to chapter 33. Moving on, Jacob meets Esau. Here we go. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives. He put the servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead. As he approached his brother, he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked at the women and children and asked, Who are these people with you? These are the children God has graciously given to me, your servant, Jacob replied. Then the servant wives came forward with their children and bowed before him. Next came Leah with her children, and they bowed before him. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed before him. And what were all the flocks and herds I met as I came? Esau asked. Jacob replied, They are a gift, my lord, to ensure your friendship. My brother, I have plenty, Esau answered. Keep what you have for yourself. Verse 10. That's funny, Johnny. But Jacob insisted, No, if I have found favor with you, please accept this gift from me, and what a relief to see your family smile. It is like seeing the face of God. Please take this gift I have brought you, for God has been very gracious to me. I have more than enough. And because Jacob insisted, Esau finally accepted the gift. Well, Esau said, Let's be going. I will lead the way. Well, Esau said, Let's be going. I will lead the way. Verse 13. But Jacob replied, You can see, my lord, that some of the children are very young, and the flocks and herds have their young. 2. Flocks and herds have their young too. If they are driven too hard, even for one day, all the animals could die. Verse 14. Please, my lord, go ahead of your servant. We will follow slowly at a pace that is comfortable for the livestock and the children. I will meet you at Seir. Verse 15. All right, Esau said, but at least let me assign some of my men to guide and protect you. Jacob responded, That's not necessary. It's enough that you've received me warmly, my lord. So Esau turned around and started back to Seir that same day. Verse 17, Jacob, on the other hand, traveled on to Succoth. There he built himself a house and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place was named Succoth, which means shelters. Verse 18, later, having traveled all the way from Padam Aram, Jacob arrived safely at the town of Shechem in the land of Canaan. Let's see here. In the land of Canaan. There he set up camp outside town. Verse 19, Jacob brought the plot of land where he camped from the family of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. Last verse. And there he built an altar and named it El Eloi Israel. So this will be our, we're going to go to chapter 34, and we have one chapter after this, and we're going to call it a day. So, chapter 34, verse 1. One day Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, went to visit some of the young women who lived in the area. But when the local prince, Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, saw Dinah, he seized her and raped her. But then he fell in love with her and tried to win her affection with tender words. He said to his father Hamor, "Get me this young girl, I want to marry her." Soon Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter, Dinah, but since his sons were out in the fields herding his livestock, he said nothing until they returned. Hamor, Shechem's father, came to discuss the matter with Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the field as soon as they heard what had happened. They were shocked and furious that their sister had been raped. Shechem had done a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family, something that should never be done. Verse 8. Hamor tried to speak with Jacob and his sons. "My son Shechem is truly in love with your daughter," he said. "Please let him marry her. In fact, let's arrange other marriages too. You give us your daughters for our sons, and we will give you our daughters for your sons. And you may live among us. The land is open to you. Settle here and trade with us, and feel free to buy property in the area." Then Shechem himself spoke to Dinah's father and brothers. "Please be kind to me and let me marry her," he begged. "I will give you whatever you ask. No matter how dowry or gift you demand," that's what the payment. "I will gladly pay it. Just give me a girl as my wife. Give me the girl as my wife." Verse 13. But since Shechem had defiled their sister Dinah, Jacob's sons responded deceitfully to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, "We couldn't possibly allow this because you're not circumcised. It would be a disgrace for our sister to marry a man like you. But there is a solution. If every man among you will be circumcised like we are, then we will give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves. We will live among you and become one people. But if you don't agree to be circumcised, you will take her and be on our way." Hamor and his son Shechem agreed to their proposal. Shechem wasted no time in acting on this request, for he wanted Jacob's daughter desperately. Shechem was a highly respected member of his family, and he went with his father Hamor to present this proposal to the leaders at the town gate. "These men are our friends," they said. "Let's invite them to live here among us and trade freely. Look, the land is large enough to hold them. We can take their daughters as wives and let them marry ours. But they will consider staying here and becoming our people with us only if all of our men are circumcised just as they are. But if we do this, all their livestock and possessions will eventually be ours. Come, let's agree to their terms and let them settle here among us." So all the men in the town council agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the town was circumcised. Verse 25. But 3 days later, when their wounds were still sore, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, who were Dinah's full brothers, took their swords and entered the town without opposition. Then they slaughtered every male there, including Hamor and his son Shechem. They killed them with their swords, then took Dinah from Shechem's house and returned to their camp. Meanwhile, the rest of Jacob's sons arrived. Finally, the men they plundered the town because their sister had been defiled there. They seized all the flocks and herds and donkeys, everything they could lay their hands on, both inside the town and outside in the fields. They looted all their wealth and plundered their houses. They also took all their little children and wives and led them away as captives. Afterward, Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have ruined me. You've made me stink among all the people of this land, among all the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are so few that they will join forces and crush us. I will be ruined, and my entire household will be wiped out. But why should we let him treat our sister like a prostitute?" They retorted angrily. Last chapter, chapter 35, verse 1. Then God said to Jacob, "Get ready and move to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." So Jacob told everyone in his household, "Get rid of all your pagan idols, purify yourselves, and put on clean clothing. We are now going to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered my prayers when I was in distress. He has been with me wherever I've gone." So they gave Jacob all their pagan idols and earrings, and he buried them under the great tree near Shechem. As they set out, a terror from God spread all over the people and all the towns of that area. So no one attacked Jacob's family. Eventually, Jacob and his household arrived at Luz, there's that name again, called Bethel, in Canaan. Verse 7, Jacob built an altar there and named the place El Bethel, which means God of Bethel, because God had appeared to him there when he was fleeing from his brother Esau. Soon after this, Rebekah's old nurse, Deborah, died. She was buried beneath the oak tree in the valley below Bethel. Ever since, the tree has been called Alon Bakuth, which means the oak. It means oak of weeping. Now that Jacob had returned from Padan Aram, God appeared to him again at Bethel. God blessed him, saying, "Your name is Jacob, but you will not be called Jacob any longer. From now on, your name will be Israel." So God renamed him Israel. Then God said, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. You'll become a great nation, even many nations. Kings will be among your descendants, and I will give you the land I once gave to Abraham and Isaac. Yes, I will give it to you and your descendants after you." Then God went up from the place where he had spoken to Jacob. Jacob set a stone pillar to mark the place where God had spoken to him. Then he poured wine over it as an offering to God and anointed the pillar with olive oil. And Jacob named the place Bethel, which means house of God, because God had spoken to him there. That's the death of Rachel and Isaac. Man, I told you that they give you the deaths more than the lives. This is the last chapter we're in right now. Leaving Bethel, Jacob and his clan moved on toward Ephrath. But Rachel went into labor while they were still some distance away. Her labor pains were intense. After a very hard delivery, the midwife finally exclaimed, "Don't be afraid, you have another son." Rachel was about to die, but with her last breath, she named the baby Benoni, which means son of my sorrow. The baby's father, however, called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. Jacob set up a stone monument over Rachel's grave, and it can be seen there to this day. Then Jacob traveled on and camped beyond Midal Eder. While he was living there, Reuben had intercourse with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Jacob soon heard about it. These are the names of the 12 sons of Jacob. So now we're hearing about the 12 sons of Jacob. We're about to close out right here. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's oldest son, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's servant, were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's servant, were Gad and Asher. These are the names of the sons who were born to Jacob at Padan Aram. And you'll see that these lineages take us all the way up to modern day. And yes, the tribes are still here today. So Jacob returned to his father Isaac in Mamre, which is near Kiriath Arba, now called Hebron, where Abram and Isaac had both lived as foreigners. Verse 28. Isaac lived for 180 years. Then he breathed his last and died at a ripe old age, joining his ancestors in death. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. chapter 36. So Genesis chapter 36, beginning in verse 1. So start over. Here we go. Genesis chapter 36, starting in verse 1. Esau's descendants is what we're going to talk about now. This is the account of the descendants of Esau, also known as Edom. Esau married 2 young women from Canaan, Adah and the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah and granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite. Verse 3. He also married his cousin Basemath, who was the daughter of Ishmael and sister of Nebaioth, I guess. Am I saying that right? Adah gave birth to a son named Eliphaz for Esau. Basemath gave birth to a son named Ruel. Ohilibamah gave birth to sons named Jeus, Jalem, and Korah. All these sons were born to Esau in the land of Canaan. Esau took his wives, his children, and his entire household, along with his livestock and cattle, all the wealth he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and moved away from his brother Jacob. Verse 7. There was not enough land to support them both because of all the livestock and possessions they had acquired. That sounds familiar from the last few chapters. Verse 8. So Esau, also known as Edom, settled in the hill country of Seir. This is the account of Esau's descendants, the Edomites, who lived in the hill country of Seir. Verse 10. There are the names of Esau's sons. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Esau's wife, Adah, and Ruel, the son of Esau's wife, Basemath. The descendants of Eliphaz were Taman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. I'm glad those names aren't like that today. Timnah, the concubine of Esau's son Eliphaz, gave birth to a son named Amalek. These are the descendants of Esau's wife, Adah. And the Bible gives us entire genealogies leading to the story and the lineage of Jesus. So verse 13, the descendants of Ruel were Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mizah. These are the descendants of Esau's wife, Basemath. Esau also had sons through Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, and granddaughter of Zibeon. Their names were Jeus, Jalem, and Korah. You know, there's going to be a test after this for how to spell these names. So that's good. These are the descendants of Esau who became the leaders of various clans. The descendants of Esau's oldest son, Eliphaz, became the leaders of the clans of Taman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. These are the clan leaders in the land of Edom who descended from Eliphaz. All these were descendants of Esau's wife, Adah. Verse 17. The descendants of Esau's son, Ruel, became the leaders of the clans of Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mizah. These are the clan leaders in the land of Edom who descended from Ruel. All these were descendants of Esau's wife, Basemath. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I hope I am. Verse 18. Welcome, Sonia. Nice to have you. The descendants of Esau and his wife, Oholibamah, became the leaders of the clans of Jeus, Jalam, and Korah. These are the clan leaders who descended from Esau's wife, Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah. These are the clans descended from Esau, also known as Edom, identified by their clan leaders. Verse 20. These are the names of the tribes that descended from Seir the Horite. They lived in the land of Edom, Lotan, Shabal, Zibeon, and Anah. Dishan, Azer, and Dishan. These were the Horite clan leaders, the descendants of Seir, who lived in the land of Edom. By the way, we're reading the NLT, and we're in chapter 36 of Genesis, verse 20. The descendants of Lotan were Horai, and Hemam. Lotan's sister was named Timnah. The descendants of Shobal and Alvan, Manahath, Abal, Shepo, and Onam. The descendants of Zibeon were Ea and Anah. This is the Anah who discovered the hot springs in the wilderness while he was grazing his father's donkeys. Verse 25. The descendants of Anah were his son Dishan and his daughter Oholibamah. The descendants of Dishan were Hemdan, Eshben, Ithran, and Karen. The descendants of Azer were Bilhan, Zavan, and Achan. The descendants of Dishan were Uz and Aaron. So these were the leaders of the Horite clans, Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah. Dishon, Azer, and Dishon. The Horite clans are named after their clan leaders who lived in the land of Seir, or Ser. Verse 31, these are the kings who ruled in the land of Edom before any king ruled over the Israelites. Bela, son of Beor, who ruled in Edom from his city in Dinah, or Dinah. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah from Bozrah, became king in his place. When Jobab died, Husham from the land of Temanites became king in his place. Verse 35. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, became king in his place and ruled from the city of Avith. He was the one who defeated the Midianites, in the land of Moab. That's the washpot. When Hadad died, Semlah from the city of Mesrekah became king in his place. When Semlah died, Shaul from the city of Rehoboth on the river became king in his place. When Shaul died, Baal Hanan, son of Akbor, became king in his place. When Baal Hanan, son of Akbor, died, Hadad became king in his place and ruled from the city of Pau. His wife was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred, and granddaughter of Mezahab. Verse 40. These are the names of the leaders of the clans descended from Esau who lived in the places named for them: Timnah, Alva, Zithath, Aholabamah, Elah, Penon, Kenaz, Tamam, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Iram. These are the leaders of the clans of Edom, listed according to their settlements in the land they occupied. They all descended from Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites. And that closes up chapter 36. Moving on to chapter 37, and we're on a roll. We're going to 40. I'm telling you guys, the Bible can be fun. This is not boring. It seems like it is if you don't know, but if you read it, it will bless you to death. So this is about Joseph's dreams. So this is a good story right here. Chapter 37, verse 1. So Jacob, or Yahab, settled again in the land of Canaan, where his father had lived as a foreigner. Verse 2. This is the account of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often tended his father's flocks. He worked for his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing. Tell you what, Joseph gets a bad time here before he goes to Egypt. The man goes through it, I'm telling you. Verse 3. Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him. One night Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him more than ever. Wow. Verse 6. Listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine. Well, if you're the brothers, you sure don't want to hear that. You're like, hey, look, I'm above you guys. That's rough. But actually, Joseph was very honorable. Verse 8, his brothers responded, so you think you'll be our king? Do you? Do you actually think you'll reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. Verse 9, soon Joseph had another dream, and again he told his brothers about it. Listen, I have had another dream, he said. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. As you guys get to the book of Revelation, this is going to be prophecy that'll point to something. It's pretty outstanding. Verse 10, this time he told the dream to his father as well as to his brothers, but his father scolded him. What kind of dream is that, he asked. Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you? Verse 11, but while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what the dreams meant. So verse 12, soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. When they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing the sheep at Shechem. Get ready, and I will send you to them. I'm ready to go, Joseph replied. Go and see how your brothers and the flocks are getting along. Jacob said, then come back and bring me a report. So Jacob sent him on his way, and Joseph traveled to Shechem from their home in the valley of Hebron. Verse 15, when he arrived there, a man from the area noticed him wandering around the countryside. What are you looking for? He asked. I'm looking for my brothers, Joseph replied. Do you know where they are pasturing their sheep? Yes, the man told him. They've moved on from here, but I heard them say, let's go on to Dothan. So Joseph followed his brothers to Dothan and found them there. Verse 18. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. It's just a hole in the ground, basically, the water area. We can tell our father a wild animal's eaten him. They're going to lie about him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. So they are jealous. Verse 21. But when Reuben heard of their scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. Let's not kill him, he said. Verse 22. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into the empty cistern here in the wilderness. Then he'll die without laying a hand on him. Without our laying a hand on him. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. Verse 23. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. Verse 24. Then they grabbed him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. I want you to think about some parallels here to Jesus. I think you'll find some parallels, you guys. Verse 25. Then, just as they were sitting down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming toward them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. Remember, anytime they're going down is bad. Egypt never has any good references really about it. Verse 26, Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he's our brother, our own flesh and blood, and his brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him to them for 20 pieces of silver. And the traders took him to Egypt. Wow. Looks real bad, but you ought to see how this thing ends. It's pretty amazing. Verse 30. Then he went back to his brothers and lamented. That's the sadness, the lamenting when you're sad, you could say. The boy's gone. What will I do now? Verse 31. Then the brothers killed a young goat and dipped Joseph's robe in the blood. They sent the beautiful robe to their father with this message. Look at what we found. Doesn't this robe belong to your son? So they're trying to make it look like they didn't do it. Their father recognized it immediately. Yes, he said, it's my son's robe. A wild animal must have eaten him. Joseph was clearly been torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes and dressed himself in burlap. He mourned deeply for his son for a long time. Verse 35. His family all tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. I will go to my grave mourning for my son, he would say. And then he would weep. Meanwhile, the Midianite traders arrived in Egypt, where they sold Joseph to a Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Potiphar was captain of the palace guard. Okay, moving on to chapter 38. We're almost done, and we can wrap this up tonight. Good stuff. You guys having a good time or what? Okay, so we're going to 38. This is about Judah and Tamar. Chapter 38, verse 1. About this time, Judah left home and moved to Udalam, where he stayed with a man named Hira. Verse 2. Then he saw a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Shua, and he married her when he slept with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and he named the boy Verse 4. Then she became pregnant again and gave birth to another son, and she named him Onan. And when she gave birth to the third son, she named him Shelah. At the time of Shelah's birth, they were living at Kazib. In the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son to marry a young woman named Tamar. But was a wicked man in the Lord's sight, so the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to brother Onan, go and marry Tamar, as our law requires of the brother of a man who has died. You must produce an heir for your brother. Verse 9. But Onan was not willing to have a child who would not be his own heir. So whenever he had intercourse with the brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground. This prevented her from having a child who had belonged to his brother. But the Lord considered it evil for Onan to deny a child to his dead brother, so the Lord took Onan's life too. Lord doesn't mess around, I'm telling you. Got to listen to him. Verse 11, then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Go back to your parents' home and remain a widow until my son Shelah is old enough to marry you, or Shelah. But Judah didn't really intend to do this because he was afraid Shelah would also die, like his two brothers. So Tamar went back to live in her father's home. Some years later, Judah's wife died. After the time of mourning was over, Judah and his friend Hira, the Adulamite, went up to Timnah to supervise the shearing of his sheep. Someone told Tamar, Look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear the sheep. Verse 14, Tamar was aware that Shelah had grown up, but no arrangements had been made for her to come and marry him. So she changed out of her widow's clothing and covered herself with a veil to disguise herself. Then she sat beside the road at the entrance of the village of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. Verse 15. Judah noticed her and thought she was a prostitute since she had covered her face. In those days, it was believed that if you had your head shaved, you didn't have a covering, you were a prostitute. We'll talk a lot about in the church of Corinth, the Corinthian church. So he stopped and propositioned to her. Let me have sex with you, he said, not realizing that she was his own daughter-in-law. How much will you pay to have sex with me? Tamar asked. I'll send you a young goat from my flock, Judah promised. But what will you give me to guarantee that you will send me the goat? She asked. What kind of guarantee do you want? He replied. She answered, Leave me your identification seal and its cord and the walking stick you're carrying. So Judah gave them to her. Then he had intercourse with her, and she became pregnant. Verse 19. Afterwards, she went back home, took off her veil, and put on her widow's clothing as usual. Later, Judah asked his friend Hira, the Adulamite, to take the young goat to the woman and to pick up the things he had given her as his guarantee, but Hira couldn't find her. Verse 21, so he asked the men who lived there, Where can I find the shrine prostitute who is sitting beside the road at the entrance of Enaim? We've never had a shrine prostitute here, they replied. So Hira returned to Judah and told him, I couldn't find her anywhere, and the men of the village claim they've never had a shrine prostitute there. Verse 23. Then let her keep the things I gave her, Judah said. I sent the young goat as we agreed, but you couldn't find her. We'd be the laughing stock of the village if we went back again to look for her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has acted like a prostitute, and now because of this, she's pregnant. Bring her out and let her be burned, Judah demanded. Verse 25. But as they were taking her out to kill her, she sent this message to her father-in-law. The man who owns these things made me pregnant. Look closely. Whose seal and cord and walking stick are these? Judah recognized them immediately and said, She is more righteous than I am. Because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shelah, and Judah never slept with Tamar again. Verse 27. When the time came for Tamar to give birth, it was discovered that she was carrying twins. Verse 28. While she was in labor, one of the babies reached out his hand. The midwife grabbed it and tied a scarlet string around the child's wrist. And that's interesting, the scarlet string. These are clues that tie to something else. Announcing this one came out first, verse 29. But then he pulled back his hand and out came his brother. What? The midwife exclaimed. How did you break out first? So he was named Perez. Then the baby with the scarlet string on his wrist was born, and he was named Zerah. And so we're going on to chapter 39, and then there's one more chapter after that, and we are done for the night. Chapter 39, this is when about Joseph and the Potiphar's wife. Verse 1, when Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And wait till you find out who becomes second to the king pretty soon. Pharaoh. Verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of the entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man. Sounds like me. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. And Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Uh-oh. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. I think she tried to mess with him. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God, verse 10. She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day. And a lot of you out there have experienced that. Got to be careful about this. But he refused to sleep with her. Attaboy. And he kept out of her way as much as possible. Verse 11. One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. She came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, come on, sleep with me. Joseph tore himself away, but he left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house. When he saw that she was holding his cloak, and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. Look, she said, my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but he left his cloak behind with me. She's a liar. Verse 16. Welcome back, Johnny. We're finishing up the last half, and we're going to be on our 90-day challenge, so we had to read a little bit more tonight. So this will normally be once a day around noontime. She kept the cloak with, this is verse 16 to 39. She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. Then she told him her story, that Hebrew slave you brought into your house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. Verse 20, so he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held. And there he remained. Verse 21, but the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. See, if God is for you, who can be against you, man? You can't change the plan if he's got a plan for you. God's amazing. Verse 23, the warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. I'm telling you, I don't care if you're Joseph thrown into a well. I don't care what somebody tries to do to lie about you. If God has a plan, he's got a plan. That's the way it is. That's awesome. Last chapter for tonight. Chapter 40, this is Joseph interpreting a dream for two prisoners. For Pharaoh for about two prisoners. Okay, chapter 40, verse 1. Here we go. Genesis 40, verse 1. Sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these two officials, and he put them in prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. Verse 4. They remained in prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. Verse 5. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. Verse 7. Why do you look so worried today? He asked them. And they replied, we both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean. Interpreting dreams is God's business, Joseph replied. That's what I'm talking about. Prophecy. 1 Corinthians 14, read all about it. Go ahead and tell me your dreams. That's awesome. Prophecy is a good thing. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. In my dream, he said, I saw a grapevine in front of me. Verse 10. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. Verse 11. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is what the dream means, Joseph said. The 3 branches represent 3 days. Come on. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as the chief cupbearer. I want you to think of the parallel again. Joseph is a parallel to Jesus. In 3 days, he'll be lifted up. Remember the temple would fall? He says in 3 days, you can't tear down his body because he's going to raise it up in 3 days. That's going into the tomb, 3 days in the tomb, and he's risen. So that's a parallel, you guys. It's beautiful. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as chief cupbearer. That's awesome. Verse 14. And please remember me and do me a favor when these things go well for you. mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. That reminds me of the thief at the cross. Will you remember me in paradise? I don't know. That's just awesome. I don't know. Could be. For I was kidnapped from my homeland in the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. Verse 16. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, I had a dream too. In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white pastry stacked on my head. Now listen, there's people that do dream interpretation. You have to understand that there is mention about this in Scripture. Whether or not it's a real thing, I'll leave that up to you and the Holy Spirit. But it is mentioned in Scripture. Verse 17, chapter 40 of Genesis. The top basket contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them from the basket on my head. Verse 18, this is what the dream means, Joseph told him. The 3 baskets also represent 3 days. There it is again, verse 19. About to wrap this up tonight. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Wow, does that sound anything like the cross with our Jesus? Is Joseph paralleling the cross? I don't know. Very awesome. The birds will come and peck away your flesh. Wow. Verse 20, Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all his officials and staff. I want you guys to know, right before Jesus died, Passover was coming. I think it was Passover. No, wait. Yeah, there was a big feast. I can't remember which one. My brain's drawing a blank. Anyway, and prepared a banquet for all his officials and staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer and chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer, just like he was told, to his and chief baker to join the other officials. There it is, God doing his thing. Verse 21, he then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. Verse 22. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. Last verse for tonight. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. Man, listen, isn't that funny that we're done for tonight? But, in the Old Testament, or when you guys think about Jesus being left in the temple when he was around age 12, and I think it was 3 days before they noticed he was left there because he was to be with his father. It was bar mitzvah. And so isn't that funny? They didn't notice they left Jesus there till like 3 days later, I think it was. Isn't that just like us? He was at synagogue. For us to go to church and we have Jesus with us, but when we leave, we just forget about him for 3 days till Wednesday or till Sunday. That's really fascinating to think about. Yeah, so Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, even after being given everything, he forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. And that is the close of chapter 40. And guess what's next? We're going to talk about Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dream. And that's going to be tomorrow around 12 o'clock. Thank you, guys. I love you. We're going to go ahead and pray out. Let's do this. Father God, we just thank you for this time together. It's been a long section if we combine these two together from, I think it's chapters 19 all the way to 40. Father, this third day of reading, Father, has been a blessing. It's blessed my heart, and hopefully it blesses the souls of the listeners. And that someone may take a joy in this, that I know they have, like I said, audio Bibles. They have lots of other resources. But I'm hoping it'll make it fun, make your word fun like it is. And it's little nuggets, and people are blessed by it, Father. We just thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name, amen. Love you guys.